The thunder crashed like the wrath of God himself, shaking the very bones of my old ranch house in the heart of the Arizona Badlands. Rain lashed down in sheets so thick it turned the world into a blurry gray hell, and the wind howled through the canyons like a pack of demons on the hunt. I'd been standing on the porch, my bare feet planted on the warped wooden planks, nursing a tin cup of black coffee that had gone cold hours ago. 15 years I'd spent out here, carving a life from rock and dust, far from the towns and the people who only ever brought betrayal and loss. My name's Wyatt Harlan, and I'd sworn off the world after it took everything from my youth. My reputation as the fastest draw in 3 territories, and the woman who'd promised forever but left me with nothing but a bullet scar and a heart turned to stone. But that night, the storm brought something I never expected. Through the driving rain, I spotted her, a shadowy figure staggering toward my gate, her steps faltering like a wounded deer. She collapsed to her knees in the mud, her body folding in on itself. And even from 50 yards away, I could hear a faint, broken cry swallowed by the gale. At first, I thought it was a trick of the lightning, those jagged forks splitting the sky and illuminating the desolate landscape in harsh, fleeting bursts. Isolation plays games with a man's mind, conjuring ghosts from memories best left buried. I'd seen enough phantoms in my time, echoes of saloon brawls. The face of my old partner Billy Kane, who died in a crossfire, meant for me. Or worse, the soft smile of Sarah, the love I'd lost to a fever and my own damned pride. I shook my head, telling myself to turn back inside, bolt the door, and let the storm claim whatever fool had wandered this far into nowhere. People meant trouble. They always had. But as another bolt cracked overhead, lighting her up like a lantern in the dark, I saw the truth. She was real, and she was dying out there. Her dress clung to her like a shroud, soaked through and torn, revealing a frame too thin, too fragile for this unforgiving land. Her dark hair matted against her face. Hiding eyes I could only imagine were filled with the kind of desperation that mirrored the ache I'd buried deep in my chest long ago. My hand tightened on the porch rail, splinters biting into my palm. "Damn it all," I muttered, the words lost to the wind. 15 years of perfecting solitude, of building walls higher than these red rock cliffs. And here was fate throwing a curveball straight at my gut. I grabbed my Winchester from beside the doorknot to threaten, but old habits die hard. Caution had kept me breathing when hotter heads ended up 6 feet under. The rifle's weight was a familiar comfort as I stepped into the torrent. Boots sinking into the muck, rain stinging my face like needles. The closer I got, the worse she looked. Couldn't have been more than 20, though the lines of hardship etched around her eyes made her seem older, wiser in the ways of suffering. She lifted her head as I approached, and those eyes wide, stormy gray, reflecting the lightning, locked onto mine with a mix of fear and defiance that hit me like a gut punch. "Please," she whispered, her voice a threadbare rasp against the thunder's roar. I can't go on. Nowhere else. ... Those words echoed in my skull, stirring ghosts I thought I'd laid to rest. Sarah had said something similar once, on a night not unlike this, begging me to stay when I was hell-bent on chasing glory with my gun. I'd left her anyway, and when I came back, she was good fever, took her while I was out playing hero. The regret had hollowed me out, turned me into this shell of a man who preferred coyotes for company over humans. But this girl wasn't Sarah. She was a stranger, broken and bleeding. And something in me, a flicker of that old gunslinger's code, the one that said, "You don't leave the weak to the wolves," stirred to life. I unlatched the gate, my hands steady, despite the cold seeping into my bones. "Can you stand?" I asked, my voice gruffer than intended, keeping my distance to avoid spooking her further. She nodded, but as she tried, her legs buckled, sending her back into the mud with a soft, anguished cry. That's when I saw the marks. Dark, ugly bruises circling her wrists like manacles, fresh rope burns raw and weeping. And lower, on the hem of her dress, a stain darker than mudblood. My jaw clenched, a slow burn igniting in my chest. Someone had done this to her, tied her like an animal, hurt her bad. The rage felt familiar, like an old friend waking up after a long sleep. I'd seen too much violence in my days riding with outlaws and lawmen alike, but this was personal, stirring memories of my sister. Lost young to a brute of a husband before I could intervene. Easy now, I said, extending a hand slowly. She flinched at first, a raw spasm of terror that told volumes without a word. But she took it, her fingers cold and trembling in mine, and I helped her to her feet. She favored her left leg, the limp more pronounced up close. I could smell the fear on her, mixed with the earthy scent of rain-soaked earth. We made our way to the porch in silence, the weight of unspoken questions hanging heavy between us. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls lined with dog-eared books, my only companions these years. Tales of adventure that mocked my own stagnant life. She collapsed into the armchair by the fire, shivering despite the warmth. I draped a wool blanket over her shoulders, noting how her eyes darted around the room, musessing, calculating, like a trapped fox eyeing escape routes. The cabin was sparse, a single cot in the corner, a rough-hewn table, shelves of provisions, and my collection of rifles mounted on the wall. No frills, no reminders of the past, except a faded tin type of Sarah tucked away in a drawer, where I couldn't see it but knew it was there, a constant thorn. "What's your name?" I asked, settling across from her, the Winchester resting against my knee, not pointed at her, but ready. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. "Clara," she murmured, her voice gaining a touch of strength from the fire's heat. "Clara Voss." Her eyes met mine again, that defiance flickering beneath the exhaustion. "And you?" "Wyatt Harlan," I replied, watching her closely. No recognition in her gaze, good. My notorious days as a gunslinger were long buried, though whispers still lingered in border towns. "What brings you out here, Clara Voss? This ain't no place for a lady alone." She pulled the blanket tighter, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I got lost in the storm. Needed shelter." But her voice lacked conviction, and the way she hid her wrists under the sleeves told me otherwise. She was running, plain as day. From something or someone that had left those marks, I leaned forward, my tone low but firm. "Those bruises say different. And the blood on your dress ain't from a fall. Who's after you?" Her eyes flashed with panic, then hardened. "No one. Just, please, let me stay the night. I'll be gone by dawn." Lies, I thought, but I didn't press. Not yet. Instead, I stood and moved to the small kitchen alcove. Rifle. Still in hand, habit from years when every shadow could hide a bounty hunter. "You hungry?" The question surprised her, her head snapping up as if kindness was foreign. "Yes," she admitted softly. Almost shyly, I heated up a pot of venison stew over the fire, the savory aroma filling the air, mingling with the scent of wet earth from outside. As it simmered, I poured myself another coffee, black and bitter, matching my mood. Watching her, I felt an unwelcome pool of curiosity, mixed with something softer, like the first stirrings of concern. She was beautiful in a wild, unbroken way. Her features sharp and resilient, like the desert flowers that bloomed after rare rains. But beauty had burned me before. Sarah's had been my undoing. When I set the steaming bowl before her, she attacked it with a desperation that twisted my gut. Spoonful after spoonful, like she hadn't eaten in days. "Slow down," I said gently. "You'll make yourself sick." She paused, color returning to her pale cheeks. "Thank you, Wyatt, for ... everything." The way she said my name sent a shiver down my spine, not fear. Something warmer, dangerous. I pushed it down. "Don't thank me yet. Storms pass, but troubles like yours, they tend to follow." As we ate in a silence broken only by the rain's drum on the tin roof, fragments of her story slipped out. Married 3 months to a man named Vance Crow, a name that made my blood run cold. The Crows were legends in these parts, ruthless landowners who'd clawed half of Arizona from natives and settlers alike, their grip on the territory generations deep. Vance, the youngest son, was known for his temper and his fists. Whispers of beaten workers and disappeared rivals floating through saloons I'd avoided for years. "He thinks I'm his property," Clara said, her voice trembling but edged with fire. He uses his hands when words fail. I couldn't take it anymore. Took his best horse, a pouch of gold from his safe, and ran. Hit his pride where it hurts. I nodded slowly, the rage building again. Good. A man like that deserves to lose it all. My words surprised even me, laced with a protectiveness I hadn't felt in decades. Her faint smile in response, a small, cautious curve of her lips slit something in my chest, spark against the cold. But as the evening wore on, her anxiety grew, eyes flicking to the windows, body tensing at every gust. He'll come, she whispered finally. Vance doesn't let go easy. His family's got eyes everywhere, sheriffs in their pocket, hired guns on payroll. I knew the Crows all too well. Old Man Crow had once tried to run me off my land when I first staked it, sending his boys with threats. I'd stood my ground then, alone. Now, with Clara here, it felt like declaring war on a empire. Why me? Why this ranch? Fate, maybe, she said, her gaze meeting mine, holding it longer than before. In that look, I saw not just fear, but a quiet strength, a resilience that mirrored my own survival. It stirred emotions I'd locked awaitedness, the ache for connection. Damn it, Wyatt, I thought. Don't let her in. Suddenly, through the window, faint glows appeared, torchlights cutting the darkness, growing closer. A posse, at least a dozen riders. Their silhouettes menacing against the storm. Get down, I hissed, grabbing the rifle. Clara's face paled, but she moved quick, pressing against the wall. Into the root cellar under the floor by the hearth? Stay quiet. She grabbed my arm, her touch electric. What about you? I'll handle it. My grim smile hid the turmoil, the fear not for myself, but for her. This woman who'd crashed into my world and awakened, feelings I thought dead. The hooves thundered closer as she vanished into the hiding spot. I positioned by the door, heart pounding like it hadn't since my gunslinging days. Vance Crow burst into view, young and handsome in a cruel way. His eyes cold as a rattler's, flanked by his brother's stuff, hard-faced men, and a gang of hired guns, including a scar-faced brute I recognized as Red Jack, a notorious killer from Tucson, Harlan. Vance bellowed over the wind. We know she's here. Hand over my wife, or we'll burn you out. I stepped onto the porch, rifle visible but not raised. Don't see no wife, Crow, just a storm and a fool posse trespassing. Vance nudged his horse forward, rain dripping from his hat. That stallion in your barn's mine. Tracks lead straight here. Don't play dumb, old man.